It's another amazing Saturday, and we have a very interesting and I think fun show today. I'm going to be joined by guest co host Shalane Shepherd. You won't want to miss out because you get to participate in a variety of ways today. So put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it's time for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Here we are. Wait, what are you drinking this morning, Shalane?
This is right now it's water because I finished a whole thing of tea while you and I were talking before. And so Dustin, bless him, is very busy in the kitchen right now making me more tea. And so my brain went, I don't have tea. I have to have something when he
drinks. Everybody drink.
Oh, yeah, everybody drink.
All right. Well, we're getting going here, and it's always fun to have you here, Shalane. There are just certain topics where it just makes it a little more interesting to banter and to go back and forth and kind of have there you are with your tea.
If I drink, will everybody drink? Is that a thing now?
I think it should just be I don't know if you have to say it or not. You're the one typically who makes the comment.
My cat did. I don't know if you heard him, but he said right when I did. So I think he told everybody to drink. Thank you for stepping in.
All right. Well, I'm just looking here. It looks like we've got Jerry Thompson's here. Good morning, Jerry. Alan is here. If you're joining us, make sure you say hello in the chat. Rick Venturi is here saying hello, but do as these people are doing in the chat right now. Make sure you say hello so we know you're here. And this is going to be one of those today that we're going to talk about some things that I think are just kind of in an off the wall way, very, very interesting. But I'm going to do something here in a few minutes that you get to participate in. And I'll mention this there's Garfield, right? Is that Garfield, the cat?
Yes. He's joining the conversation.
Rick just said, everybody else drink. If you have a moment right now, grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, because we're going to do a little something here in a few minutes that's going to test memory. I'm going to walk you through a little exercise. We won't do it yet. I'll wait till we get a few more people here and get going with this. But we'll go with whoever's here. I also know this is a busy Saturday for a lot of people. We got people, by the way, welcome back from the UK. Last week at this time, you and your mom, my wife Carol, last week at this point, you were on a plane, on a flight on the way back from England after having spent a week in Scotland and England, right?
Yup.
That's about right.
I do think it looks a little shady that I went to Scotland.
You were in Scotland.
The Queen died. I was in Scotland. The Queen died, and I left the next day. I don't think that
we're just going to leave that. I don't think there's any. I don't think we need to start any controversy.
I'm fleeing the country. I'm just.
Well, you pointed out that as your mother has done ancestry research in recent years, that there is a distant but verifiable connection to the royal family that you think could put you in the line of succession, and that's why you're concerned that people might have some controversy about your presence in Scotland at that time. We're not going to go into that. I don't want too soon, possibly. All right. Hey, I see a few more people have joined in. Jason's here, Jay Zetterval, Kathy Garlick, Carla Venturi. Good morning, all. And again, as you join in, a couple of things. One, make sure you say hello. Second thing, if you haven't already gotten this message from me, grab a piece of scratch paper and a pen or pencil, because we're going to do a little exercise in a couple of minutes. I want to first talk about, and Shalane, I don't know if you have the information up in front of you, but we have some special days this week that I wanted to mention. Do you have that run sheet?
I don't.
That's all right. You can just tune in on them if you want. But today there were a bunch of things this week, and I want to get through them because I want to get to our topic. But the 17th, September 17th, which is today, is Citizenship Day. And that's tied into the fact this is also Constitution Day. In 1787, it was September 17th, 1787, that the Constitutional Congress met for the final time in session for the members to sign the Constitution. Now, it wasn't a done deal yet because they had to take it back to the individual states to get each state's constituency had to sign off on it. But this was the date in 1787 that the Continental Congress signed off on it. And that's also why it's Citizenship Day, a day for those not only who are naturalized citizens, but for all of us as citizens to appreciate the fact that we are. I have an itch right here. Have you noticed I keep scratching that? Sorry. It's also International Red Panda Day. It's the third Saturday in September.
Red panda,
I love red pandas. We happened to be, Carol and Carissa was with us. Carissa is on here. No. At the National Zoo in Washington, D.C., we were in Washington, D.C. We were going to the zoo, and we got there when they were supposed to open, and they weren't open. They were holding people back. It turned out one of the red pandas had escaped from the zoo, and they were trying to find it. They eventually found it in an apartment complex like a half mile away and brought it back. There was like news coverage.
It was making pancakes. It had gotten itself a pot of coffee.
Yeah,
it was
you
watching
know how
news.
red pandas are, but they're cute animals. They are really adorable animals. I love them. It's also National Apple Dumpling Day. And if you're into apple dumplings, I wonder if do you like, are you a homemade apple dumpling person? For those of you who do baking and that type of thing,
it's one of those. I've never had apple dumplings.
You never have had apple dumplings?
Yes.
Try them. They're good. Apple dumplings. It's one of those national days that's not an official national day. They just call it that. Another thing that today is, though, is the beginning in Germany of Oktoberfest. And we happened a few years ago, you and Dustin and your mom and I were in Munich, Germany during Oktoberfest. Wow, that's quite the celebration there. There was a lot of lederhosen running around town.
A lot of lederhosen was running around.
And a lot of beer steins being filled and consumed.
I was very impressed with the waitresses. They were carrying about 12
of those steins at any one time.
At any time.
And just, I mean, the weight and the balance, amazing. Sunday, tomorrow is National Cheeseburger Day. Again, not an official national day, but they're calling it that. And everybody has their own preferences about cheeseburger. Some people just like the basic cheeseburger. Some people like different types of cheese, or they like other things on their cheeseburgers. You're an Impossible Burger person, right?
I do appreciate an Impossible or Beyond Burger.
Yeah, but you can do that. Can you do that with real cheese, or do you have to do artificial cheese on yours?
Real cheese has not been nice to me lately, so I do the artificial, which frightens some people. They're like, get that cheese away from me. I feel the same way though about American cheese. I'm like, hey, if y'all are having American cheese, I can have my fakey cheese over here because it's kind of the same deal.
Yeah, processed in some way. Also tomorrow, Dustin should be listening to this, but as I have to listen to it, as all of the husbands out there should be listening, but tomorrow is also Wife Appreciation Day. Now, this is one of those that I'd say to myself, and you hear me say this about certain, did Dustin just get a look?
He goes,
where did that come from? Yeah.
Like, why me? Why am I getting called out?
Well, I just was being sensitive to the fact that your wife is on camera right now, Dustin. I think personally, that's one of those things that I get that we have like a Mother's Day and a Father's Day, but Wife Appreciation Day, we have to call out 1 out of 365 days. Like, here's my personal opinion, and also trying to score points positively. That should be every day, right? So, and all the wives on here are going to go, yeah.
It is in our house.
I also want to say, acknowledge the fact I saw Scott joined here. Jerry Zetterfall is on, so good morning to both of you. If you haven't already heard this, I'm going to mention it a couple more times. Grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil if you're watching today, because we're going to do a little something here in a few minutes that you get to participate in. Monday, International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Do it together. Ready?
Yo ho ho.
R. Yeah, well, yo ho ho works. Or you could sing the song from Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Or hoist the what is it? Hoist the colors. What's the song from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie? One of the movies. It's hoist the something. Anyway, Monday is also National Butterscotch Pudding Day. This is another one of those. It's like, wow, we're getting very specific here. Wow. It's not just National Pudding; it's butterscotch
pudding marketers are really getting in there.
That's right. But Tuesday is National Pepperoni Pizza Day. Not just general pizza. It's got to be pepperoni. Not everybody's a pepperoni fan. People like different things on their pizzas, and there are very strong opinions about what should and shouldn't go on pizza. Wednesday, I mentioned this one, and it's interesting because these are both United Nations supported days. International Peace Day, I think we can all agree, knowing some of the things that are currently and have gone on in our world. International Peace Day would be wonderful.
It would be great, but again, it's like just the one day.
Yeah, right.
Just that Tuesday.
How about International Peace World, right? And companion with that, also on Wednesday, is World Gratitude Day. I'd be grateful for world peace, but there are things that we can be grateful for, I think. And then Thursday, last thing I'm going to mention here, last couple of things, Elephant Appreciation Day. It's just interesting that it goes along, we're appreciating certain kinds of foods and certain states of being. And then there are elephants.
An elephant eat butterscotch pudding for world peace.
Or pepperoni pizza. And then also, did you know that Thursday is the autumnal equinox? It's the official first day of fall, of autumn. Is Thursday, the 22nd. It varies by a day or two, just depending on, what the earth is doing. But it's going to be Thursday this next week. I didn't have captured any specific birthdays or anniversaries that anyone is celebrating this week. So if you've got a special day or you know of someone in your sphere celebrating a special day this week and you would like us to call that out here and acknowledge, put it in the chat here so that we can properly wish a happy birthday or happy anniversary or happy bar mitzvah or whatever we need to. Yeah. Listen, I want to get into our topic because today we're talking about something called the Mandela Effect. And you and I talked about this. I think you were co-host a few months ago when we were talking. The topic then was kind of the urban legend types of things in general. And you were the one, when we were getting ready to do that show, who brought up and said, you got to mention the Mandela Effect. So we're going to focus a little bit on the Mandela Effect today and talk about what that is and why it's called the Mandela Effect even, right? It started, and I've got to remember, Fiona Broome is the author. She's sort of a paranormal expert. She's a self-proclaimed paranormal consultant. I love titles. Sure. But in 2010, she has a heavy following. And in 2010, she made reference to the fact that Nelson Mandela, the famous South African activist who became president of South Africa, first Black president of South Africa following apartheid, that she had a clear recollection of him dying in prison in the 1980s and not ever getting out of prison, not ever being elected president of South Africa. And, all this stuff about him being president. And then when he eventually died, it's like, no. He died back in the 80s in prison. And Nelson Mandela was in prison in the 1980s. And the interesting thing was when Fiona posted that, a bunch of her followers said, yeah, you're right. That's what I remember too. So this thing got labeled by Fiona the Mandela Effect.
This is only in 2010? Because I have a Mandela Effect that this was much earlier.
And
I'm not kidding. It's like, it's only been around for 12 years.
That's a theory began circulating. This is what this article says. And I'm reading from an article that was in skepticalinquirer.org. So, take this for what it's worth. No, but it's by a gentleman by the name of Massimo Polidoro, who is an investigator of the paranormal, an author, a lecturer, and co-founder and head of the CICAP, the Italian Skeptics Group. And he has a website, etc. I'll post some of this information later on the Coffee Break site. But this is what he talks about. I'm just going to read from his article, if that's okay, because it covers a lot of the stuff. And this is where we're going to go to our little test. And again, if you tuned in just recently, grab a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, because we're going to do something fun in a few minutes. But Massimo says, Have you ever heard the phrase, play it again, Sam? Many remember it as Ingrid Bergman's most famous line in the movie Casablanca. Upon review, however, it turns out that Bergman actually said, play it, Sam, play as time goes by. And then I think later on, there are some other lines that make reference to that.
Right.
Yet many remember the phrase as play it again, Sam, which was never uttered. Why? And part of the thing that goes with that, we're going to talk about how we apply certain things culturally to other things and make them part of the memory.
Right.
There was a play, a Woody Allen movie and play that was done in the 1970s called Play It Again, Sam. And it centered around this guy who's kind of got a fantasy life in which the character played by, now my mind just went blank. Who's the actor and played in Casablanca? I know. You know who I'm talking about.
Bogart.
Yeah, what? Humphrey Bogart. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Justin.
there is in Woody Allen's play, there is a character who is the Humphrey Bogart sort of imaginary fantasy who speaks to this guy. And the play was called Play It Again, Sam. And so that a lot of people say, well, that's where that relationship comes in. It's not the only case. For example, there are those who remember that in Star Wars, Darth Vader spoke the phrase, Luke, I am your father. In reality, the phrase is slightly different. All he said was, no, I am your father. Others recall the Queen in Snow White saying, what, when she talks to the mirror? What is the phrase?
Mirror. Everyone quotes it as mirror,
mirror, mirror on the wall.
Who's the fairest one of all?
The actual phrase was magic mirror on the wall. She never says mirror.
And
mirror.
There's a movie called Mirror, Mirror that is
there again, we tend to take certain things that make sense to us, and it could be the way a phrase is put together. We're going to show some examples.
It's the way the phrase is put together, but they actually it is a Snow White story, so they took that incorrect phrase.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is they build some
title of
get built on
Snow
that.
White movie.
It gets built on, and that just adds to it, right? Then it talks about Fiona Broome and what happened here. Now, a lot of people, I'll just fill this in. I've read it in other articles. That part of the reason people may have that incorrect memory about Nelson Mandela is we also sometimes mix people up. There were other activists. There was another very famous activist during the same era as Mandela being in prison by the name of Stephen Biko. He was also a very well-known, prominent South African activist who died in prison at the hands of guards. It was a big controversy. It made a lot of news at that time in the 1980s. Because there was clear evidence that he'd been beaten to death in prison, Stephen Biko. But a lot of people overlapped that with Nelson Mandela, particularly if you're not South African.
Right, and because they're both South African activists, it's like
Black South African activists from that same era. So there's some thought that is what happened. Now, Fiona Broome's thing was that must mean, she called it the Mandela Effect when she had this memory and said, it's a parallel universe or a parallel timeline thing where kind of like a glitch in the matrix, something got changed and it affected the timeline. And for some reason, some people have trace memories of something different from what, history is now recording something a certain way, but no, there are enough of us who remember that other reality that it must have been a shift in the timeline. We're going to talk about that too. Psychology has a different view of what's happening here. These memory errors are exactly what we think they are, errors. This is still from Massimo's article. Many get the idea that our brains work like a computer or the equivalent of video recorders, storing data perfectly in our mind and then retrieving it exactly as we received it. But this is not the case. Memory is a continuous process of creation and reconstruction, and memories change over time, even though we can be absolutely convinced of their accuracy. There is also the fact that very often we remember scenes or phrases from films in an approximate manner, and then these enter common jargon, as is the case with Play It Again, Sam, and then he talks about, which became the title of a Woody Allen movie. However, the way in which false memories are created is so immediate and widespread that it's even possible to test it, like right now. So here's what we're going to do. Don't write anything down. I asked you to get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. And all I'm going to ask you to do right now, and this is for those of you listening at home as well, is I'm going to read a variety of words out loud. I just want you to listen. Do not write anything yet. Just listen to these words. Bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, slumber, snore, nap, peace, yawn, drowsy. Okay, now I just read a variety of words. Write down the ones that you remember me saying. Just take the next 30 seconds and write down every word you remember me saying. And you at home do the same thing.
I think I know where this one's going, so my brain's trying to get ahead of it.
That's all right. And those of you at home, write this down, and we'll go off of when Shalane says she's done writing.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, did you write down what you could remember, Shalane?
Yeah, I wrote down bed, awake, rest, drowsy, peace, blanket, yawn. But I have a feeling what we think is sleep.
Okay, so let me find this out. If you followed along at home, how many of you included the word sleep when you wrote down? Just say I did, or put the word sleep in the chat. If you wrote sleep on your piece of paper, put it in the chat right now, and I'm going to tell you why we're going to talk about that. Jerry Thompson says, I'm tired now. Hey, Jay, I wanted to go back. You made a comment a few minutes ago that our high school did the Play It Again, Sam. That's right. When we were, that is correct. Adams High School, I think that was the first. I've seen the movie as well, but they did the play. And yeah. All right. A couple of you are already putting yes, you included the word sleep. What's interesting is that was not one of the words that I said out loud. Sleep was not in that word. So according to the Deese, Rodiger, McDermott paradigm, people tend to recall a word that is actually related to all the other words, but is absent from the list. In this case, the word is sleep. About half of those who participate in this type of experiment state afterward that they are sure they remember hearing the absent word, but this is the memory of something that never occurred, a false memory. So Massimo goes on to talk about this, and he gives some references. And again, I'm gonna put a link to this article later on so that you can just see Massimo. And I'm not saying he's the ultimate expert. I just thought this was.
Saying I'm an Italian cynic. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, you're an Italian cynic, and that fits with you. Yeah. But now what we're going to do, I want to take a few minutes because I know we're already going to get short on time, but I want to take us through some things that tie into this common elements of what we consider to be part of the Mandela Effect.
If you don't care if Steve goes over time, write it in the chat.
We probably will go a few minutes over today, and if you need to leave, that's fine, but I think this is going to be fun. So we're going to talk about the Mandela Effect, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that bottom banner just so that we can see this a little more clearly. So Mandela Effect, is it, and I love the fact that when I put these up, look different than created, all of a sudden it says memory. It actually on the slide said false memory, or are we living in an alternate reality? I don't care what it says. So there's Nelson Mandela. And again, we've already talked about the background of this and why Fiona calls this the Mandela Effect, etc. So here's something that comes up. So we're all familiar with this brand, right? We've used this peanut butter, we've used Jiffy, we've seen it on the store shelves, etc. And we're familiar with the appearance of this logo, right? Everybody good with this? You know what this logo represents?
I would think the colors are off somehow, but my brain tells me that this is correct.
It's not. It's not called Jiffy peanut butter. It's Jif. So why so many of us, and again, so Jay had that, Kathy and Jay both mentioned it's Jif. It's not Jiffy. But again, it's not that 100% of people have it wrong, but there are going to be people who will say, I thought it was Jiffy. My mind said Jiffy was correct. And that's one of the things that we tend to do. Why do you think we think Jiffy when it's Jif? J-I-F.
For me, I can tell you, and you know this story. When I was little, it was Jif, Jiffy Lube. I would confuse them and think, I don't know where Jip came in, but I would say, I'll be done in a jippy.
Jippy, that was your word.
When you were little. Be ready in a jippy.
But that's the thing is Jiffy is a slang word that we use to talk about hurry.
Yeah.
We don't, and Jiffy is the common spelling. So once again, our brains try to fill in on the basis of something common, right? What about this one? We remember this, dun, 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 dun. We get the music and everything with this. And we know there's Bugs Bunny's face. Yeah, what's up, Doc? And we see the thing, and we see the Looney Tunes, then the Warner Brothers logo in there.
I was thinking no E in Looney.
How about the fact that Tunes is not Toons? In the actual logo, it's Tunes. We want to make that connection because in our minds, the creative says 2 O's in Looney, 2 O's in Tunes. And it seems like the cartoon, Looney cartoons. But it started because, the tunes, the music is what they were focused on. Scott says, Jif is the brand. Jiffy is the feeling you get when you eat it. But how many of you thought that Looney Tunes in your brain, Toons, was correct, right? We make certain associations. This group of little bears that we've all seen the cartoons or read the books, and we know that their name is the Berenstain Bears. And this looks right, doesn't it?
Okay, I know the answer to this one, but in my brain, I was thinking, no, there's no, that second E in Berenstain. It should be Bernstein was where my brain went.
That middle E should be missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else on this? I know we've got a bit of a delay, so I'm going to see some of the comments and the guesses on this a little bit late, but so the actual
it's Berenstain.
That's the last E that is incorrect. It's the Berenstain Bears. And there are people who go, I am sure I remember this being EIN. I'm positive I read
Justin
books.
was telling me, I remember getting corrected about that as a kid by adults. Like, no, this is how you spell it.
But the incorrect spelling. He was corrected to the
EIN.
Incorrect. Yeah. Because there are people who just automatically, this is what they remember. Right. Here's another example. We know that Curious George, the monkey, which of these is correct? Does he have a tail or does he not have a tail?
I remember him without a tail, but I'm sure that's wrong. And so I would say tail.
Looks right.
He's a monkey.
He's a monkey. And we know that anthropologically or zoologically, monkeys have tails. If they don't have a monkey, they're not. If they don't have a tail, if they don't have a monkey, hang on. Jeez. Everybody drink. Kathy Garlick says no tail. Who says tail? Put tail if you think that he should have a tail, or no tail if you think he shouldn't. No tail is correct. Technically,
I really wanted you to go, no banana was correct.
No banana. He doesn't. The dude doesn't eat bananas. Zoologically, if he has a tail, he's a monkey. If he doesn't have a tail, he's a lesser ape. So it's Curious George, the lesser ape.
I think he's just like somebody's kid.
Those cartoons bothered me because they would just like let him do things that a monkey or an ape should never be doing, Yeah. Jay Zetterall says, I hate monkeys. Listen, not my monkey, not my circus. All right, how about this one? What's wrong with this?
It's missing an E from the E's.
Or is the first E supposed to be an A? Fabrice. Or Febreze. What's wrong with this? I think when you and I first were talking about this, you said it says unscented, and we know that there's no such thing as Febreze.
Yes, it says right there. It's unscented, and that's not accurate.
That's not right. So there are certain things here that just don't make sense. Sorry, I'm just looking at comments. Yeah, Carla said no banana. Rick says he's a little ape. All right, so Febreze. What do we think about? It stinks. Fabrice should have, Scott says Fabrice should have a tail. So let's look at this one. Oh, okay. That was your point about the second E. All right, great. Right. Except it doesn't. That first picture was correct.
I don't know why. That's just, you know why it's making me upset?
Why?
And with just because it confirms all of my worst suspicions about my horrible memory. When I become a retiree, I'm just going to I don't know what you're going to concerns me about my
I don't either. We know this brand, don't we? I wish I were an Oscar Mayer wiener. And we know that design and the shape and the colors and everything. Anything about this not
should
right.
Be switched. directions or something.
It should be switch directions, or I
Or
mean,
different
there's subtle
color.
things, and you can go, you know what, that's not really so much about memory, and some logos do change over time.
See the
Kathy says,
Oscar Mayer
Kathy
Miller
Garlick
cross in the
says
back.
the spelling is wrong, and it should be Mayer. Yeah, Jay, do you see Jay Zettervall's comment? Shalayan, the great thing about getting older is that you get to make up your own history. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick simply
Kind
goes,
of what
yeah.
today's about.
Yeah. All right. Kathy, I don't know if Kathy and Scott are, like looking on a cheat sheet or something, but that's right. Or they're just not in that alternate timeline. They exist in the current timeline.
Some of
so
us can be rewritten more easily than others. I think that is a reality.
Ever played the game Monopoly?
Not by choice.
Yeah, Kathy, by the way, and that's part of it, is if you grew up with certain jingles that went with some of these products, that helps you remember the correct. My Baloney has a first name, it's OSCAR. My Baloney has a second name, it's MAYER. Yeah, MAYER. And so we grew up hearing that jingle, and that helps. Yeah. Scott's got it too. We grew up in the same household, obviously, Kathy, Scott, and I, because we know these silly things. Okay. We know this guy from Monopoly with his top hat, his monocle, his handlebar mustache, his bag of money, his black waistcoat, and etc. So why is this one in here? What is the deal with this dude? And why do we think somehow that there is a Mandela Effect incorrect memory about this? I'm curious.
Because he's actually a Democrat. Sorry.
He's actually looks like Teddy Roosevelt.
When I looked at this the first time, I thought, does he really have legs? Maybe he's
really have legs,
have legs,
or yeah, and there are other things that people point out with this that they think could be off. Well, here's the reality with this one: no monocle. And a lot of people say, well, why do we think he should? For one thing, that look is typical. Mr. Peanut, right, who dresses similarly. There's also a thought that because he resembles Teddy Roosevelt, and we're used to seeing pictures of Teddy Roosevelt, but Teddy Roosevelt, I don't think, used a monocle. He had wire-rimmed glasses, but there was still that idea of something else there that we got used to. All right. Here's one more. All right. So we're used to seeing the fruit in the cornucopia for Fruit of the Loom. And people, looking at this and going, yeah, the fruit looks right to me there. But what is wrong with this one?
I'm not gonna say, because this one genuinely made me upset.
This one made you upset, but when we talked about this before, you were talking about you thought that the fruit was wrong.
Maybe the apple or loom. Maybe fruit is FROOT, like Fruit Loops.
Oh, kind of like the Fruit Loops thing, right? Yeah. How about this? There's no cornucopia. There is no horn of plenty.
This alone might make me subscribe to the alternate reality.
But this one, stop and think about how many pictures we see, particularly around like the Thanksgiving holiday. We see so many pictures represented in memes and everything else that show fruit with or vegetables, mostly squash or that type of thing, with a cornucopia. We're used to seeing that first picture as a representation in other places. And so it makes sense, doesn't it? We're going to talk about there's some movie quotes and other things in history I want to talk about quickly here. And again, thanks for sticking with us, but I think this is fun. Life is like a box of chocolates. We know that phrase, don't we? Yeah, it's not the line that he actually says. If you listen closely, he says, and I went back and played clips to confirm this. My mama always said that life was like a box of chocolates. And I thought, well, maybe Sally Field, as his mom, actually says the phrase the way we think of it. All she says when they're talking about it, she says, Forrest, life is a box of chocolates. She doesn't even put the simile in there. Life is a box of chocolates. So she puts it in a present tense, but there is never that actual line, life is like a box of chocolates. Interesting. How about Mr. Rogers' theme song? You can find yourself, you might start singing the lyric, right? We all sing it. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. And we watched that movie, the biopic with Tom Hanks, and he does it so beautifully, fills in Mr. Rogers' character so beautifully. But even the movie got it wrong, and Tom Hanks sings it wrong, because what Mr. Rogers sang every day was, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, not just the neighborhood. It was this neighborhood. It was his neighborhood. I mean, we get it wrong. We've filled in and done it the way our brain thinks we should do. We do that with a lot of lyrics. Sinbad. There are a lot of people I know. This one's a big one because people will say, well, yeah, Sinbad was in that movie Shazam. He played a genie. No such movie, no such role for Sinbad. It's possible that people are confusing with the movie Kazam that was Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. Go back and check IMDb. There is no movie Shazam. I think there was a TV show at one time called Shazam, but there was no movie called Shazam and no role that Sinbad. And part of it is people go, well, Sinbad, it's a sailor's name, a pirate name or sailor name. He obviously played that. He has that look. He looks like the genie. He must have played that part, right? How about Billy Graham's death? This is another one like Mandela, where when Billy Graham in the later part of his life, and he had kind of moved out of the public eye to a great degree, they were like, well, yeah, he died years and years ago. And they can't remember exactly when Billy Graham died. And we find this with other celebrities. I'm sure, by the way, there are going to be people right now talking about this past week and a half and going, Queen Elizabeth died several years ago. Right. What are they talking about? I mean, there's going to be there are going to be those people coming out of the woodwork who will say that. And by the same token, a few years from now, there are going to be people who are going to see King Charles doing something and going, wait a minute, what happened to the Queen?
Right.
Where's the Queen? I thought Elizabeth was Queen. But people can't remember when Billy Graham died. It didn't happen that long ago. It was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. So, but some people, when he died, went, I thought he already did. Do you do that with some celebrities? You hear about their death and you go, I thought they were already dead.
Well, I keep doing it the opposite of like, I keep forgetting that person died.
Yeah. And then something will come up.
I'll be like, oh, what are they up to? And then realize, oh, I'm years behind the 8 ball on that.
Do you remember Patrick Swayze being diagnosed with cancer? I think it was pancreatic cancer. And this one kind of, because I recall that he died, pancreatic cancer.
Yeah,
but there are people who say they remember him recovering and even going on with his career and doing things afterwards. But anyway, I thought that was just interesting to look at. So those are just some examples, right, of the type of thing that we're talking about here. And it's just interesting to me. The last thing here to talk about is that idea, Shalane, and we are running over, and that's fine, that there are people who will say this is representative of something other. And you have some thoughts about it. It has to be one of things.
I have, so there's the fun answers, right? That are I love that Fiona, what's her name? Fiona Broom, right? Something like that. That she jumped straight to multiverse. Mm-hmm. It's like, go big or go home. And I get that because that's the fun answer. And that doesn't give us any responsibility for creating our own incorrect narratives, right? So it skirts the responsibility of it. But so multiverse, time travel, both of those are the fun answers that we really, really want to be true. But
physicists say that time travel, I mean, going to Einstein and that type of thing, wormholes and various things. Go ahead.
And I'm not going to say that it's impossible, right? I tend to subscribe to Occam's razor, which is all other things being equal, the simplest answer tends to be correct. Yeah. I think it is much more likely that this is a case of lazy brain, either individual or collective lazy brain, or worse, marketing. Not that marketers are bad or marketing is bad, but we've seen it lately with flat earthers and with, we never went to the moon, and just, or even I saw an interview.
Conspiracy theory types of things.
All the conspiracy theories of, well, Washington freed his slaves when he died. No, he didn't. Like that, we have a
paradigm
story we've told ourselves, or that somebody has impressed upon us to try and make it the narrative. And we are just very malleable because we're social creatures. We want to go along with what the collective consciousness says. It's really hard to go against that. So I think a lot of it has to do with what we've accepted as cultural norm. Mm-hmm. And we don't realize when we're off base with that because everybody's off base together. So that's what I think it is. Although there are some very weird things out there that would speak to, oh, look, a time traveler in this old photo. that doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't say that that is totally out of the
Who knows?
possibilities.
Yeah, there are strange things that pop up still. And I'm curious, you can please feel free in the chat. You have your own theories, you have your own direction that your mind goes, if you remember correctly. Your own mind goes when you think about these things. And by the way, if you're tuning in later and you're watching this recorded, your comments in the chat are still welcome. We still look for those, and I still want to see what your thoughts are about all of this. Participate, please. But for those of you who've been here, listen, I want to, we are over our normal time. So I want to, first of all, thanks, Shalane, for being here and co-hosting. We're not going to be here next week. And yeah, I'll do the same. There we go. There will not be an episode of Coffee Breaks with Steve next Saturday.
So sad.
I know. And why is that, Shalane? What's going on next Saturday?
Because we're going to go as a family unit. We're going to go to Portland and see the premiere of that one movie I was in. I'm sure no one's heard of it. It's not like we talked.
It's not like we've talked about it frequently and had
years now. But they're doing a premiere of All Sorts in Portland.
And we get to go. Yeah. And Rick Castaneda, who is the creator of All Sorts, was the writer and the director of All Sorts, was on this show a few weeks back, and we talked about the movie. The other thing is that I think is cool. We'll mention it here, and I'll post about this. Is that Rick yesterday did a live stream and announced, because some of you had asked about this, if you can't get to the theater premieres, when's it going to be available on TV? October 5th. It is going to streaming video. It's going to be on Apple TV. It'll be available for rent or purchase on Amazon Prime, I think, and some other platforms. Yeah. And I'll post an update on that as well, since that's something that ties to our conversation with Rick when we had him on the show. So yes, we will be in Portland next week, but we'll be back the following Saturday with another new show. And
I hope some of you who are Portlanders or in the area can come to the premiere, because I'm not sure when the next time is that we'll get to party quite like this.
It's gonna be fun to be in Portland to do that. So yeah, so we'll actually be on the road driving next Saturday during this time to get to Portland, so that we're there for that evening. But just invite you to participate, and we'll keep you posted on the live streaming opportunities. Maybe we'll do some watch parties or something when it goes live stream. That could be kind of fun. And and yes, Jerry Thompson said, don't forget to thank Garfield is also joining as co-host. Is he still there?
Yes, he's a great co-host. He made sure to add to the conversation many times, whether I wanted him to or not.
He was involved as some of the rest of us. Oh, snap. Anyway, okay, well, it's been fun. We've gone long today, but I appreciate everybody being here and sticking with us and participating in this fun conversation. And Shalane, you come back as co-host anytime, because it's always fun to have the conversation.
I'll break in, it's fine.
Yeah, just jump on. We've also talked about the fact someday I'm going to retire from doing this, and we'll just turn it over to you, and it'll be Tea Time with Cheech, which is Shalane's nickname, if you didn't know that. But anyway, listen, got to go. Want to let everybody get on with your weekend. But again, we live in a world that has things that we all feel strongly about. You have a voice. You have the ability to do things. You have the ability to change things. You may not think that you do, but you really do. So please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week.